second chance in the game.
Sometimes I get the fun ones that are a little different than just the X's and O's football. But again, just an opportunity to talk to you guys about just winning at home and this idea of marriage, family, and coaching. Again, my name is Tim Rulo. I've had an opportunity to speak for Chief Pigskin before. But again, with this topic, I want to spend a little bit of time just giving you a little more background about myself. I've been a head coach now for 11 years. You can see there on the screen, 7 years at South Callaway, 3 years at Elias Catholic, and 1 year at Chillicothe High School. All are in Missouri. During that time, I've also been just a coach in general for 16 plus years now. Again, been a head football coach, been a head track coach, I've been a basketball coach, been a head strength and conditioning coach, had an opportunity, very humbled to be a clinic speaker as well. And so, again, been doing a lot of those different things. The other thing that's interesting and kind of ties into this idea of marriage and coaching is, again, I've been married to my wife, Ann, for 13 years now. We actually dated for 5 total years before that, so we've been together for almost 20 years. My wife, though, is a licensed professional counselor and a licensed marriage and family therapist. I always joke when she asks me to lie down on the couch and tell me how I'm feeling, I know I must have done something wrong. But again, I'm just so blessed by my family. Again, you can see in the picture we have 2 children, Caleb, who is 7, and Charlotte, who is 4. Again, just want to give you a little bit more background about this. I knew from an early point that coaching football was going to be just a really stressful and challenging thing, potentially on marriage. So with that being said, after my wife and I had already dated for 3 years, I said, hey, Ann, I'm going to go through 2 seasons of coaching football, and I really want you just to come alongside and see what this is like. Because I knew that she wanted to be in a relationship. She wanted to be my wife. I knew that we were going to have a great time together, eventually have children. But at that point, I wanted to make sure that she was on board with all the things that this lifestyle came in store with. After that, she agreed, even after 2 years, so thank goodness on that. But at that point, we made a commitment that every year we were going to go to some type of coaching marriage retreat to reconnect. We just thought that was really important. There's a lot of different organizations that host those. You have FCA, you have an organization called Coaches Timeout, other organizations called Coaches Outreach. These are different organizations around the country that provide these kind of services. And so we went. We went to ones down in Missouri, in Arkansas, and Oklahoma, and we had a great time. After doing this for a while and people got to know us, they actually asked us one time, oddly enough, the speaker couldn't be there on one day. The director turned to my wife and I and said, hey, I know it's last minute, but would you like to come and speak at our clinic or just speak on this last day? And my wife and I turned to each other and were like, well, yeah, we'll give it a shot. And so we had a top 10 list. You're a coaching couple if. We went through it, and again, my wife and I were able to kind of play off each other really well in our dialogue, and people had a blast, and they really enjoyed it. And we were really humbled by all the positive feedback we got. And then after that, for the last 7 years, we've been lucky enough to go around to different states and speak on coaching, just professional life, marriage, and parenting, and what that looks like. And again, just been very humbled and blessed by that, because I know that I don't know everything, right? I know it, but again, just that opportunity has been there and has been given to us, and I've just realized just that important need in coaches and in marriages. So that kind of leads us into, why is this important, right? Why is this an important thing? And I think, one, we just have to be firm to admit coaching can place marriages under immense amounts of stress, right? The coaching life is unique, right? Whether you're talking about there's in-season and off-seasons, or for some coaches, you might be in-season and then in-season again and then in-season again in the spring. Just from the late nights, from the publicity of it, right? The fact that people in restaurants or in grocery stores in town are going to see you and talk to you. You might be on the radio or on TV or quoted in a newspaper. Just the amount of parents that are around it. Some might be fans of you, some might not are. Heck, your wife might need to know where to sit and where not to sit when she goes to games. There's just so much unique things that happen in coaching, and that can add a lot of stress. I think also in my own life, sadly, I've seen great coaches either have to depart from coaching due to the stress that it was putting on their marriages, or honestly, I've seen some coaches and friends of mine who've gotten divorced just because, again, coaching and the coaching lifestyle did not work out with their marriage. And that just makes me really sad. And so hopefully by giving back and talking about these things, hopefully it can help out coaches and their marriages. The other thing I thought was so interesting, when you've been coaching for, 15, 16 plus years now, I just realized there's a ton of professional development out there for coaches, right? We watch videos, we go to clinics, we read books, we visit other colleges. We do so many things to become better football coaches. And that's awesome. That's really important. That's needed, right? That's part of our job to get better. But I always challenge people, what do we do to personally develop, right? What are the things that we are doing to become a better husband? What are the things that we are doing to become a better father, a better person? And there's not a lot. And just like with our athletes, we would never tell our athletes just to work on the right side of their body and not the left, or just to work on their right leg strength and not their left leg strength. We need to be balanced, right? We need to be balanced. And if we're only good as football coaches, but then our home life and our marriage and our families are not strong, man, we can run into a lot of trouble. And so I think it's just important that we have to have a balancing that's going on there, right? And the more balanced we find that is, and the more effort we put into both sides, I think you're going to find that there's a benefit both not only to coaching, but also then to your marriage and your family. You know, currently right now there's a ton of buzzwords that we use, right? We talk about, you know, what kind of culture do we want to develop with our program? We talk about what kind of legacy do we want to develop with our program? What type of legacy do we want our players to leave, or we as coaches leave? You know, we talk about how we need to be intentional in that, right? That's been a big push, I'd say, in the last 5 to 7 years, right? Are you intentionally developing your culture in your program? And I think those are really good points. But also, as I've thought through that, made me think, hey, man, do we need, or how are we even going about developing that culture and that legacy in our family? And we need to do that, right? We need to be intentional about developing that. And a lot of times we kind of leave it to chance. And those are things that, again, as I've thought through all these things and I've realized, man, this is such an important thing. And again, something I don't know everything about, but hopefully we can give you some ideas and some things on it as we move forward. I think the first thing is we understand there's conflict sometimes in marriage, right? There is. The conflict occurs in marriage, and a lot of times the conflict that occurs in marriage is because there are different and undiscussed expectations, right? A great example, literally earlier this week, our morning weightlifting had to be canceled due to some flooding that's occurring in the area that I'm at Chillicothe. So flooding occurred, my wife heard, hey, everything's canceled for the day, free day, right? Time to spend with Tim. I thought, hey, man, things are canceled. I still want to keep my routine. I'm going to go in and lift in the morning and then do some work around my classroom, around the office, just to get ready for the football season. So when my wife rolled over and I wasn't there in bed anymore, she wondered. I hadn't communicated with her. I had an expectation. She had an expectation. About 4 hours later, when I came home, I realized, wow, I had messed up. I had not communicated my expectations. She hadn't communicated her expectations. Because of that difference and that undiscussed, and there was some conflict that we had to work through. So with that understanding that, again, so much conflict occurs because of those different expectations, there is just a need for hyper-communication, right? We need to have hyper-communication. We need to make sure that we're communicating all the time as best we can. One of the biggest things I would encourage is we need to prepare a plan. We as coaches do a great job having a plan when it comes to practices. We do a great job having a plan when it comes to meeting agendas, to lesson plans. We do an awesome job preparing all those things. But when we get home, guys, I'll admit, I'm the worst. I expect my wife to tell me what to do, right? What do I need to do at home? What do I need to do with the kids? What do I need to do with the groceries, around the house, etc.? And some of those things are okay. Please don't get me wrong. But again, the more I've realized, I need to prepare a plan. I need to reject passivity with my family. Instead of stepping back, right, and letting my wife just fully be in control, I need to step forward, or at least step up and figure out how I can help, and asking those type of questions. I think it's important, just in doing all this research, and my wife writes blogs and does different things for Friday Night Wives and working with other coaches' wives. Coaching wives can feel really alone, right? They feel really alone. They're by themselves. They have the kids all on their own, right? And a lot of times, right, when we ask questions like, honey, what can I do to help? You might get an onslaught of answers about how she's really disappointed with the schedule, right? You're gone all the time, man, things are just really difficult at home. But please hear the message behind the message on that, right? Yes, there might be some concerns about your schedule, but in reality, your wife just misses you, right? She just doesn't want to be alone with the kids all the time. She wants to see you. She wants you to be around too. She wants to be together in this. Please hear me on this. I'm not saying that you as a husband have to go and take over, right? I don't need to go take over. My wife probably doesn't want me to take over. But again, she wants to see that we care. And by preparing a plan, by just communicating with her, honey, hey, man, what can we do to get home? What do I need to do? What can I do to help you? Is such a big and important step to take. Guys, for me personally, I'll tell you, practice makes perfect here. It does. This is not something that you're going to knock out and figure out in one step. It's not. But I know for me, especially even this spring, I've really worked on when I get home, A lot of times I just want to go, I want to sit on the couch, I just want to relax, I want some of my own time, right? I've been pouring out to my athletes, to my students, etc. But I've really made it a point when I get home, really before I even go into the house, I literally turn right around and go outside and make sure I'm playing with my son, right? Playing catch with my son, I'm dancing with my daughter, I'm doing something right away. I'll go in and ask my wife, hey, do you need any help with dinner? Because normally it times out that she's working on trying to make dinner when I get home. But I'm going to try to ask, right, because I've prepared a plan. Also, by preparing a plan and communicating with her, I found that that's been just almost an added benefit, right? I'm asking her, hey, I thought about this. And it might not always work out, but again, it's just allowing us to communicate, allowing us to talk through things. So again, in the end, my wife isn't alone. Please again realize, guys, there are days I mess up, right? There are days you might mess up. Like I said, I messed up earlier this week, right? I didn't communicate very well. But again, practice is going to make perfect here. The more that you can communicate with your spouse and working on preparing a plan when you get home, the better it's going to be. So these next sections, I want to give you some kind of in-season thoughts, just on how to handle things in season. As a football coach, I realize you might coach other sports as well, and then we're going to give you some off-season thoughts as well. First, in season, right? We know, in football almost there's become no off-season, right? I mean, the amount of work you can do outside the season. But when we're talking about just in season, right, from the start of those two-a-days practices in August until hopefully you're playing in late November, maybe early December, depending on your state, there has to be an understanding fair is not always going to be equal, right? During that time, it is going to be really, really challenging, right? I think there needs to be a conversation before the season starts is how can we handle this football season as a family, right? That needs to be just an intentional thing. A lot of states have a dead period or some type of period before the season starts. Again, use that time to have that conversation with your spouse, even if your children are old enough to have it with them. Yes, is the season going to be challenging? Yes, it is, right? It is. But can you totally disconnect from your family during the season? No. Guys, that's just it doesn't matter what the job is, what the stress is, what's going on there, that's not appropriate. When you have that conversation, you're going to be able to figure things out and hopefully talk through some things on what you can do, what are some ways that you're going to be able to come up with a plan on how to handle that. Another big thing is, guys, you have to be intentional about the self-care that you do for yourself and your spouse and your family during the season, right? How are you taking care of yourself, right? How are you taking care of it? Because again, if you're pouring out, right, and you're putting all that time in and breaking down film and just game planning and then also having the lesson plan and all that stuff, that's great, but man, how are you taking care of yourself? How are you making sure that you are healthy, right? Because if you're pouring and doing all those things, man, you got to make sure you're taking care of yourself and you're filling yourself up. Also, it's going to be important you find time to disconnect from your sport, right? You've got to find a way to unplug, right? Whether it's putting the cell phone down, whether it's just spending that time away, but you've got to figure out a way to do that, guys, because if you're unable to do that, you're not going to be able to then fully invest when you are finally away from the sport and you are at home to be able to invest with your wife and your kids, right? I think another big thing, guys, and a great way you can help serve your wife is how are you providing moments for your wife to take care of herself? Remember, she's pouring out too, right? She's putting in all that time in by herself, right? With the kids, maybe with her job and the kids, toting them to the different sporting events, to the different games, etc. Man, she has her own dreams and goals, right? She has her own things that she wants to do. How can you help out, right, and provide, that shade, provide that time for her so she can go and then take care of and do some of the things that she needs to do so she can be more full to then go and when you are gone, go and take care of the family. I think another, an important thing that I just hope we all realize is we got to be willing to just reject some norms of society, right? We have to be willing to let go. Ones I always joke about is, hey, in season, your house just might not be that clean. It's okay, right? The lawn might not be perfectly manicured. There just has to be ways and things that you're willing to give up. I joke, I know basketball coaches that sometimes just they don't have time to really decorate the house for Christmas, right? Just it's hard for them to do that because they're gone on holiday terms, etc. Right? What does that look like for you and your family? A great line that my wife reminds me all the time is, don't let perfect be the enemy of the done. A lot of times, again, I'm a coach, right? So I want things to be done a certain way, right? I talk about how I need this step to be at 45 degrees, or I need this to happen on the third step or whatever. So I'm really high attention to detail. But when it comes to the family, I just need to be willing to step back, not let some norms of society dictate, hey, well, how I have to do things, and just, hey, let's get things done. So, for my family, hey, maybe it's a 10-minute tidy up. Guys, instead of being able to clean the whole house, hey, right, I jokingly, I put on the Rocky music, right, and then I tell the kids, hey, we're going to listen to the Rocky theme song for 10 minutes. I need you to clean up as many toys as we can to get the house a little bit cleaner, right? Another one, guys, I don't I don't cut the grass. I know it sounds weird and maybe somehow my masculinity is in question here, but I don't. I let somebody else do it because, again, that hour, right, and all the time spent around getting the lawnmower ready and everything, I learned quickly that I was an hour I could spend with my family. It was worth the money that I was paying out. Maybe that doesn't work for you. Please understand, you need to find the things that work for your family, that work for you and for your stage in life. But know, guys, that you got to figure out how to be able, where can you cut some corners so you can spend more time with your family and be able to pour into them, especially in season. When it comes to off season, guys, there has to be, or I encourage, man, this value of debriefing that, right? Spending some time with your wife when it is over, right, to ask two questions. One, was it a successful sports season? And then two, was it a successful family season? How was this for your family? What things went well for your family? How did game nights go? How did, the practice week go? How did things work out? Did you communicate as much as you wanted? Having that debriefing, again, shows that you care. It shows your wife that, man, you want to help out as much as possible. All right. I think another thing is that reentry back into regular life, right, in that off season might be difficult. You need to be honest with your wife about what you need, right? Because again, I don't know what your season was like. Maybe it's a really tough season. Maybe it's an offer, right? Maybe you just weren't as successful as you hoped to be. But with that, guys, then it might be a little tougher to just jump right back in to regular daddy daycare life. Maybe it was a really successful season. Maybe you were able to win a lot of games. Maybe it was pretty easy, right? Not a lot of injuries, not a lot of parent concerns. Maybe it's a little easier. Again, asking questions like, how can I help? What are some things that I can do? Because again, you've got to figure out, guys, what are things that you can do to be helpful to kind of reacclimate yourself and help start easing some of the stress of all the things your wife has done. But remember, she's been doing it for months now, right? So again, if you just go in and start terrorizing, changing up the plans that she's had, that changing expectations can be really challenging. Ultimately, it's the off season. I realize it's not the same off season as it was 15, 20 years ago, but again, with that off season, you got to figure out how to invest time with your family. With children, guys, there's a great article, Love is spelled T-I-M-E, right? Love is spelled time. And we need to know that, right? That you're going to just have to spend time with them. And it needs to be quality time, right? I know sometimes, even in the off season, it's hard to turn the brain off, right? It's hard to tell, not to be thinking about football, not to think about who's going to be starting next year, not to think about what offense you're going to run, what defense you're going to run, etc. You just got to spend some of that really, disconnected from football time with them. Also, guys, in the off season, man, support your wife's dreams and goals. Even asking her, honey, what do you want to do? Are you happy with what's going on right now? How can I support you? Be supportive of what you want. Again, she might not have great answers right away, right? She might not even know, but just asking those questions shows that you care and shows that you're being supportive of her goals and what her aspirations. So these next two slides, guys, I'm just going to literally try to give you some family tips. Please understand, these are just tips, things that I picked up and learned myself, watching other people, watching other coaches. Maybe you have your own, but again, just trying to give you some valuable information, ideas on what you can do, and again, how you can go and try to have a great coaching and marriage relationship together. First one, I've said this line before, it's so important to get the right people on the bus. Now again, we can talk about like what John Gordon talks about with the energy bus, or Jim Collins talks about from good to great, but in my mind, the right people here is your wife and family. Now, ultimately, I don't know your situation. Maybe your wife from the beginning knew exactly what this was all about. Maybe your wife still isn't sure what this is about, right? But in the end, right, you got to figure out how to get her and your children, right, if you have them, get them on the bus, right? The best way you can do that, guys, is you need to communicate your why. The more you can communicate your why, the more you can communicate your passion, your vision about coaching to your family, it helps them get on board. Now, I'm not going to lie to you guys. When we first started off, my wife and I were married and we're coaching, guys, there was a couple times, at least during the season, that my wife normally would look at me and be like, I'm off the bus right now. Now, after doing this for 15 plus years, it's gotten to the point now, hopefully that only happens about once a year, right? But again, each time I just try to, again, explain, hey, this is why I'm doing this, right? This is my vision. This is my passion. And the more you can have that conversation with your wife, the better it's going to be. I think another one is a great idea is you need to know your reason for being a coaching family. So again, you might have a passion for why you want to coach, but now also you are a coaching family, and there has to be a reason behind that, right? And again, I try to give people two ideas on why this is important. One, I think as a coach, you have an awesome opportunity to model, right, what it looks like to be a leader, to serve your team, to serve your players, you have an awesome opportunity to model that, right, to your wife and to your children. Right? They can learn a lot and glean a lot from watching you serve them, love them, provide for them, etc. But at the same time, and even more important, I would say, you have an awesome opportunity to model what it looks like to be a husband, right, and to be a father to your players. Guys, you can look at all the research, right? You can look at how many kids, right, don't have their biological fathers at home. You can look at all that information and see all that. And so, gosh, how important is it for you then to model what it looks like to love your wife, to love your children in front of your players? Guys, that's huge. And I think explaining that to your wife maybe will help, right? Will maybe help her to understand, oh, so I have a purpose in this, right? This isn't just coach's thing and then I have my own life. That there is a reason why I'm in this with him. Now, with that being said, as you can see the next bullet, that means you have to make sure you're making coaching family friendly. This is really important. My wife did a great job. I remember her the first day after my son was born. We had our first practice. I remember her just showing up randomly, toting my son in one arm, a bag with a blanket and everything, and she just plopped down right on the edge of the practice field and just sat there. And I was like, what's going on? Right? Again, that lack of expectations and just communicating about it. She's like, well, we want to be around. I said, well, honey, I can't even interact with you right now. I have to run practice. And at that moment, we learned and we communicated, hey, and I will explain to you, hey, this might be the 15 minutes, 20 minutes might be a really good time to show up. Or why don't you show up with about 10 minutes left of practice so I can see you guys, and then maybe we'll do something right afterwards. And so we learn to communicate about, again, making coaching, making practice family friendly, right? Even now before games, I have a time where I'm going to make sure I try to see my son and daughter and my wife before I go out to the field. But it takes time to practice that and communicate that. Again, another cool idea with that is we have what we call locker room dinners or locker room meals. So now what happens is there will be times that my wife will literally bring food, just pack food in a little cooler. It's, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and that's okay, right? We'll bring that, and then we'll come to the field, and then we'll eat it maybe right when practice is over, right? Or, right, maybe if the game's over, maybe there's some food provided in, the kids we can hang out a little bit before we got to get into breaking down film, etc. But again, just having those moments and being intentional about creating those can go a long, long way, all right? Again, I think another important thing here is you have to have a united front on time apart answering the hard questions. Guys, I need to be willing to look my son in the eye and say, hey, buddy, I'm so sorry that I can't be here, right? And as he's got tears strolling down his face, and again, why I'm gone again, right? I need to be willing to say, hey, man, this is it. You know why I do this, right? But I do love you and miss you, and I'm so sorry that I can't be there. Because again, it is tough, guys. I'll admit, I try my best not to miss sporting events, not to miss games, not to miss things, but sometimes I have, right? But I try to work around it, and that kind of goes into the next one. Use technology, right, to communicate. Use technology, whether that's my wife taking pictures, right, or videos of him batting during baseball, or my wife dancing, or my daughter dancing in recitals, whatever the case may be, right? Again, figuring out ways to use technology. Another fun thing that we've done, especially with my younger children, is we've used technology to communicate that I'm thinking about them, right? So they've given me a lovey, right? And I've taken this lovey and brought it with me to practice or brought it with me to teaching. And I will take pictures of it and I'll send it to my wife, who sends it to the sitter, just to say, hey, can you just share this with my son so he sees that I'm thinking about him. Maybe if you have older kids and they have cell phones, maybe that's just that text saying, hey, I was thinking about you. I love you. But again, just using technology, right? Technology, it's both good and bad, right? But again, just being able to use that is so key. And again, being able to use it, again, just for a positive thing to say, hey, I'm thinking about you, I love you, and communicating with them. And even your wife, guys. You can easily use technology to communicate with her as well. I think another important thing, another tip for you is that there's budget expenses of coaching, right? There just are. Whether you're having to help buy equipment, help pay for things, help paying for camp fees. I don't know about you, but again, we don't always get all the money back that we spend out on kids, and that's okay. But that needs to be a conversation that you have with your spouse, right? Please make sure that you're just talking with her about, hey, there's just going to be some expenses. I know for my wife, I'll never forget the first time I took the coaching staff to a clinic in another city. I helped pick up the hotel rooms. When she saw the credit card bill and wondered why we'd spent $500 on hotel room fees, she was like, what was going on? And I explained to her and I said, oh, man, again, I didn't communicate, just different expectations. explain to her. Now she knows, hey, during certain times, we're going to help pick up hotel rooms for coaches. We're going to help pay for the gas as we travel out there, whatever. But just knowing that stuff, right? Knowing, hey, there might be different things we have to purchase during the season to help some of our players out. So again, the more that we can then talk about those budget expenses before the season, I found it helps us out a lot, and hopefully it'll help you as well. All right, some other tips that I want to make sure to try to give you, and again, these are just things that hopefully you can figure out how to maybe adapt them to you and your coaching family. But one is develop a support system for this lifestyle, right? What are some things, or who are some people that maybe can come alongside you and help out? Whether, depending on where you live, maybe that is your parents or your in-laws. Maybe it's other just friends, but just having a support system that, again, will allow you, and just a framework and a structure to be able to help out and be able to fill in where needed. Even for me, having other coaches that I can talk to, and not talk just about football. We talk plenty about football, but making sure that we have other coaches who are willing, that I can just sit down and say, hey, how are things going? Or, man, ask me about how I'm doing, again, as a dad and as a husband. You know, another tip that I find is really helpful and really beneficial is finding a time to check in with my family. You know, we try to use a lot of different moments. Sometimes they're in-season moments, right? Maybe right there in the middle of the season, week 5. Again, we'll have those conversations before the season. We normally have that debriefing after the season. But even then, we'll normally always have a conversation around New Year's, just talking through, even birthdays some, into the school year. And just ways that we will always sit down and kind of ask. And so again, whether they're in season or out of season, having those conversations with your wife on, hey, how are we doing? How are things going, right? How can I help out? Now, I'll admit, you know, I've talked to some coaches, and sometimes they're like, well, I don't like asking that question because I know things aren't going very well. Maybe instead the question is, what's something I can do to help? But again, finding moments, being intentional about those times so you can have those conversations. Another big one for me, guys, and this is just that idea, I need to learn to press pause more. I know for me, a lot of times I just try to fix things right away. I'm a fixer, all right? Give me a duct tape, give me some duct tape and a hammer, and I'm gonna go and I'm gonna try to fix everything. And so if I see a problem at home, right when I get home, I wanna go and fix it. If I see something bad happening, or my kids being disrespectful, I wanna just bark at them right away. But I've learned the more that I can press pause and take a step back real quick and think, how do I want to respond to this in a way that's going to allow them to have a great outcome, right? So again, that little E plus R equals O if you're Tim and Brian Kite guy. But again, just learning how to press pause is really important, especially when I'm responding to my wife. Just taking in for a second, hey, she's been home with the kids all day, right? Man, she doesn't care that I've been coaching, right? She's got her own things that she's working with. Hey, my son, there might be a reason why he's being a little disrespectful right now, or my daughter's not obeying. And instead of just me yelling and barking at them, again, getting an opportunity to think about it and think about how I want to respond. But learning to press pause is so vital, so vital. Again, there's so many things that we can say out of our mouths that there's not a lot of wisdom in it, and we need to make sure that we're being more mindful of what we're saying. But learning to press pause is a huge tip that has really helped me. Again, another one is just finding time to show appreciation for your wife. Guys, the more that I can sit there, right? Maybe you've heard that classic one you hear is the date night, right? You know, make sure you go on a date night, whether that's once a week or once a month, once a time before the season and after the season. I don't know, but whatever works for you. But just pursuing her, right? Being intentional, setting things up, right? Again, don't have her prepare the date night, right? But again, just showing her that she matters, that you're grateful for all that she's doing is just so important. Also, guys, you have to remind her that she's more important than coaching. And I'll admit, guys, I didn't always do a great job of that. There are a lot of times that I would say things like, hey, honey, don't make me choose between coaching and you. And that was just a really wrong mindset for me, right? I needed to make sure that she understood that, and I'm in a relationship with her, a covenant relationship with her, and I'm being married to her, and that she is more important than coaching. Yes, does that mean that in season sometimes it is challenging? Yes, but as the whole, she is more important than coaching, and I need to make sure that I respond to that in kind and that those priorities are set correctly. Another fun one, guys, is just bring your wife to coaching clinics. I know that sounds crazy, and heck, with modern technology and things like Chief Pigskin, man, you can have the clinic in your own home, right? But I think one of the things we started doing, oddly enough, about, 10, 11 years ago now, is we actually would always have one, what I would call coaches' wives clinic. And so normally we would go to a clinic and I would bring my wife, and I would encourage other coaches on my staff or other coaches that I had gotten to know over the years to bring their wives. And we would actually go, and it was great. And I didn't ask my wife to do anything, right? She would just go and hang out and do her thing and just relax. in the hotel room or go out wherever she wanted to go out, and I would just go to the clinic. And then we would meet up for meals. And then normally one of the evenings we'd go, downtown or wherever it was, and we'd just have a great meal together and just talk and hang out. And guys, that was huge. And I remember at first it was a little different, right? Walking to the hotel with my wife when all the other guys are walking in with their buddies. But in the end, it was a great time, and we learned to really value that. And it's kind of odd because over the years now, I've seen actually more wives show up to coaching clinics, and I think it's a really cool idea. And again, a little different norm, right? You're breaking through some different societal norms, but I do think it's really important. So guys, as we conclude here, and first off, I wanted to show some pictures. You don't get a chance to see coaches and their families a lot, but I just wanted to show you some pictures here just so you could see that I'm really doing this, right? So you can see in some of these pictures where my kids are literally standing right next to me while I'm doing drills, right? You can see my daughter there as she's standing next to me with her pink bucket hat. You can see my son there. I'm literally watching the defense as I'm taking a knee at a field. And these are all different schools that I've been at. You can see my son literally playing on the pads right while I'm getting ready to run the next part of practice. You can see one of our coaching family meals that we're having. Right there, kids are eating lunch, and I think they brought me some food, and I was grabbing a quick bite in between some changes of practice that were happening during the middle of a two-a-days. And even there, that one, you might wonder why there's a picture of the laptop, but if you look close, you can see, again, one of my son's loveys that I just brought with me, and I took a quick picture of that while I was teaching that day, and I would send it to my wife, who would send it to the sitter so they can see that. So again, guys, it's just being intentional. I'm trying to do things that, again, are just allowing my family to feel a part of this, to be able to see this, to help them come alongside. So it's not, again, me in my own silo doing my own thing, and then my family doing its own thing, but we're blending this together, and it's been great. As I talked about in the beginning, guys, we are so intentional, and we do so much day-to-day things to help develop our culture and our legacy of our program, right? It's huge, man. There's our hot button issues that people talk about all the time in coaching, and I think that's really great. But my question is, how about at home, right? What are you doing intentionally to develop the culture of your family, right? What are you doing to leave a legacy at home with your children, right? What does that look like? And I get it, man, that might be tough. Maybe you haven't even had a legacy left for you. I totally understand. But you have an opportunity in this moment, right, to do the right thing and help develop the culture and legacy of your own home. I think the other thing is this is essential, right? I think as a coach, whether you're a bottom line coach, you're like, hey, is this going to help me win? And guys, I would say it will, right? We are better coaches when things go well at home, right? Victories are so much sweeter when I feel the support of my wife and children behind me. And losses just aren't near as deep. They don't cut near as deep, right, when my wife and my children are behind me. And guys, it is essential. It does make a big difference. I also understand, guys, for some of you, this is really challenging. And this is like, whoa, I still thought somehow you're going to talk about X's and O's in this, Tim. What are you doing? But I understand that, guys, you might just be asking one simple question from this. What is one thing I can do to help? Guys, my hope in this, in all these, is maybe you go back through and you write more of these down and you just literally go and ask your spouse, what is one thing that I can do to help, right? What is one thing that I can make this coming football season easier, right? And I can make just the time when I'm not there a little easier. What can I do when I do get home, right? How can I disconnect from coaching and just make sure I'm spending time with you? Guys, I know it might sound odd, but how can you be a coaching family without sacrificing your marriage, your wife, your children on the altar of coaching? And we see that all the time, right? We do. We see it all the time. Again, I told you earlier, I see great coaches who get out, get into administration, right? Great coaches who get out and have to step away from coaching just in general, right? Because how it's affecting their marriages. I see great coaches who sadly get divorced, and I don't want that for you, right? I want to figure out and hopefully give you some ideas, and hopefully you got some ideas from this on what you can do to help make sure that you're not sacrificing the really important essential things like your family, your marriage, and your children and your wife on that altar of coaching. Again, I know your family's unique, and I totally get that. And I hope from this, guys, you've figured out things that will apply to you. Every family situation is different. Maybe your wife coaches, maybe your wife's out of town, whatever the case might be. But understand that try to figure out unique things, communicate with your wife, make sure your expectations line up because you've communicated with them, so that way you can go about and then work through things both in season and out of season with you and your family. Again, winning at home. Guys, that's what it's all about. Again, so grateful for Chief Pigskin. They just allowed the opportunity to talk about this. It is a little different topic, and again, I have not mastered it. working on it every day. And I promise this coming football season, I'll be working on it again. There are going to be days that I mess up, I promise. But again, we're going to just try to get better, incrementally better every day, so I mess up less and I'm able to serve my family more and love them both in season and out of season. There's my contact information on the screen. You can see that. Again, if there's anything I can ever do to help, I would love to help out. If you have any questions about things that I mentioned in here, please let me know. I'll be more than happy to just come and talk to you guys about it. You can communicate via email or on Twitter or my cell phone, and we can talk more about it. But again, I'm here to help coaches, and hopefully you learned something about winning at home through this presentation. Thanks so much, Chief Pigskin. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.